Welcome back to the Apartment Dealer Show. I am Chris German, the Apartment Dealer, and this is where we address your questions. We address those topics. We review those resources as they pertain to the building of a financial legacy through investing in multifamily properties. Now, it goes without saying, right now we're in the middle of this stay-at-home order here in the state of California, and things are definitely interesting with respect to our personal lives, and things have changed in terms of being a landlord. So instead of saying the world's been turned inside out, we really would say outside in, because we're all ordered to stay within the confines of our homes. And I hope that you and your loved ones are faring well, and you've taken this opportunity to just invest in yourself as best as we can. Evictions. Now, over 2 weeks ago, you, I assume, partook in our live webinar where we addressed the 90-day moratorium that had just been put in place against evictions. Well, the government has overstepped its bounds even further to say there will be no evictions whatsoever. This goes beyond just the non-payment of rent now. And aside of, say, public nuisance type, criminal type activity, for any other reason, you cannot evict your tenants. So to bring us up to speed, even what's transpired over the last 2 weeks, I will be sitting with Dennis Block and Steven Spear both over the course of next week via a web conference, given the fact we have these social distancing rules in place right now. But to bring us up to speed, how do we address all the changes that have taken effect with respect to us as landlords dealing with our tenants when they don't pay us rent, when they break other portions, other rules within the rental agreements, and those are the two individuals to address that. Now, if you did not partake in the live webinar that we had a couple weeks ago, I would suggest you click that link now, review those videos. There's nearly 4 hours of educational content where we address tenant-landlord relations frontwards and backwards to address your questions in what do we do in these turbulent times of owning apartments. Next, I want to say, how did your rent collection go in the month of April? I imagine by the time of the recording of this video, enough time would have elapsed by the time you watch this that you have a good sense of how your rent collection is going to go for the month of April. And I was able to collect all my rent other than from one tenant. And it's not like I own hundreds of units, but I'm thoroughly pleased with that. And I hope that you have fared as well. Right around the 1st, I had shared with you a letter that I sent to my tenants, and we'll put a link here on this page so that you can get access to that letter if you have not viewed it yet. But essentially, I mailed each of my tenants a letter stating that if you paid me your rent by April 1st, I would reduce your rent by 20%. I forgive that 20%. You don't have to pay me down the road. Just pay me 80% by the 1st. That worked out well. I've already gone over my reasoning for that in a previous video, and you can review that. But that's just one idea to address this issue, because please consider April, us landlords were probably looking fairly decent in terms of our rent collection, but our tenants were still working at the beginning and middle of March. Maybe some of our tenants were still even working towards the end of March. But if we're still in this stay-at-home situation for another month, well, how does our May rent collection look? How does June look? Everything that I'm reading suggests that this is not going to be over tomorrow. The nationwide stay-at-home order is in effect till the end of April, last time I checked. But I don't think anyone's going back to work at the end of April. In other countries that have tried to resume life as usual, the virus starts peeking its head again. So I imagine we're going to be in this situation for some time. So we have to ask ourselves, given our tenant base, given the type of jobs that they hold, what is the likelihood that our rent shows up May 1st, June 1st, and hopefully we're not even talking about July 1st. Hopefully by then things have been sorted out. I'm also going to add a link here to the petition that's being circulated. It was started by AOA, so hats off to AOA, the Apartment Owners Association, essentially asking the governor to give some assistance to landlords. If you're asking us to essentially allow tenants, regardless of payment or not, to hunker down in our buildings so that they're not put on the streets during the course of this virus, and I can see some sense of why that is, then at least offer some assistance to the landlords who still have to make their mortgage payments, insurance payments, maintenance, and all the rest. So we're going to put a link to that petition. I would implore you, sign that, help all landlords like yourself receive some assistance at this time. Now, market update. So what has transpired? Number one question that I've been receiving from clients and just landlords like yourself in general is, so where's the market? Well, I think the bottom line is it's too early to tell. Any sales that have occurred, closed sales transactions, keep in mind these sales were negotiated prior to the stay-at-home order and really prior to us, most people anyways, thinking that this virus was really going to become something. So I don't know that those price points would give us any indication of investor sentiment. So I'm not going to cover price points, but I'm going to cover activity, because the psychology, what's the psychology of landlords and investors today? Well, we can definitely get a grasp of that given activity. So let's break this down by corridor, and these corridors are the same way that I break down corridors when you attend our educational events. So this first corridor is the 605 corridor. This is Montebello, Whittier, Norwalk, up and down the 605 corridor. How many properties have sold since March 15th? Why March 15th? Because really, come March 15th, the hysteria had started to climax regarding the virus. The word was out to most people that this was an issue. So how many properties sold since March 15th? 5 properties in the 605 corridor. How many properties have come on the market listed after March 15th? So these owners put their buildings on the market for sale after March 15th, 3 buildings in the 605 corridor. How many buildings are currently pending? So we don't know what those close dates will be, but they're currently pending. Buyer and seller have made an agreement. 6 buildings, and of those 6 buildings, 3 of those buildings were negotiated after March 15th. Now, if we go a little further south, let's go to the 710-91 corridor. So this is going to be Downey, Paramount, Cudahy, Bellflower. We kind of bring all these cities together in one corridor. How many buildings have sold? 1. This is 1 building since March 15th. How many are currently active or came available for purchase after March 15th? 3. How many buildings are currently pending a sale? 2. How many were negotiated after March 15th? 0. In the San Gabriel Valley, first, the Western San Gabriel Valley. This is your Temple City, Rosemead, San Gabriel, that general area. 5 buildings have sold since March 15th. No properties have come on the market since March 15th. 3 buildings are currently pending sale, and 2 of those 3 buildings were negotiated after March 15th. The Eastern San Gabriel Valley. So this would be Covina, West Covina, all the way up to Glendora, Azusa, Baldwin Park. No buildings have sold since March 15th. No buildings have come on the market for sale after March 15th. 2 buildings are currently pending, but of those 2 deals that are pending, meaning they're under contract currently, either buyer is doing their investigations or maybe they're further along the road and they're already into the loan process. We have 2 properties that are pending, but neither of those were negotiated after March 15th. So buyer and seller had already negotiated the terms prior to March 15th. Let's look at the East LA corridor. This would be East LA, not incorporated, El Sereno, Boyle Heights, that general area. No buildings have come on the market for sale since March 15th. No buildings have sold since March 15th. 1 building is pending sale, but that building was already under contract before March 15th. Now let's transition to Pasadena, South Pasadena, Altadena, that general area. 2 buildings have sold since March 15th. 2 buildings have come active for purchase after March 15th. 2 buildings are currently pending sale, and neither of those contracts were negotiated after March 15th. That was prior to March 15th. Lastly here, the Inland Empire. We break the Inland Empire into 2 segments. Just like any other location we're breaking up, again, that's dependent upon the tenant base and the general asking rents within those areas. So the Western Inland Empire, this would be Ontario, Pomona, Montclair. 2 buildings have sold since March 15th. No buildings have come on the market. No buildings are currently pending. And that's the bottom line, is that there's essentially no activity other than 2 buildings that have sold since March 15th. In the Inland Empire East, so this would be Rialto, Colton, Fontana, these areas. No properties have sold, none have come on the market, none are pending whatsoever. So what can we gather from that? Well, needless to say, investors, buyers are on a watch and wait scenario. No one really knows what's going to be the full blunt of this virus. Where do we go from here? I think that's largely dependent upon, well, how long do they keep us cooped up at home? How long are our tenants not working? If by some stroke of luck, we're able to go back to work, say May 15th. Okay, so then June doesn't look so bleak. But if more people get infected, more people unfortunately pass away from the virus, I imagine for our own safety, they'll ask us to stay at home. Here in San Bernardino County, for example, they just issued a new law that says you have to wear a face mask. And if you're not wearing a face mask, there's going to be a penalty for not doing so. So obviously, we're still in the thick of things, so to speak. It's too early to tell what the full ramifications of this is going to be, because you have to take a full global picture. In the 2008 crash, and I was here in 2008, stock market fell first. The real estate market lagged probably by 6 months to really see a dramatic effect within the real estate market. Obviously, the stock market currently has went through a big adjustment. It's made some gains since its low, about 18,500, I think, or so was about the low. But because landlords have not had the full effect of tenants not paying, and we don't know how many months this may go on, there isn't that 1 or 2 bad sales in a particular corridor, meaning somebody gets desperate. Maybe they already were marginal on their cash flow. Now they only need 10% of the tenants not paying. They're in a negative situation. They say, I'm out. It's better for me to sell, protect what equity I have. So now you have 1 bad sales comp. Bad sales comp meaning not the prices we had seen prior to this event. Then another investor, owner in the same area, geographical area, has to sell. Now you have 2 bad comps. Once you have 2 bad comps, that starts making a market. That starts dictating price. So that's why we wanted to track what's pending, how many came on the market after March 15th, how many were negotiated after March 15th. And we'll be able to tell probably 30, 45 days from now when these buildings start closing, what were those final price points, how much, if any, did this pandemic have in terms of what effect negative did it have on apartment values. The other question we have to ask ourselves is, what's going to be the long-term effect of all the money that's been pumped into the market? Now, keep in mind, even as late as October of 2019, the government, although they didn't make a big announcement, had already started a quantitative easing program. Lots of money injected into the market because the banks had a liquidity problem at that point. Now, obviously, they wanted to step in front of this issue, and I'm not here to argue what the actions they've taken are right or wrong. Just keep in mind, when we're talking about trillions of dollars being pumped into the market on top of the trillions that have already been pumped into it, when it comes time to pay the piper, what does that look like? And in speaking with a lot of individuals who track these type of things that I respect, they assume the outcome is going to be one of two things. Either we have significant inflation and or a huge rise in interest rates. Now, with respect to interest rates, maybe we'll address this for a moment. Half of the commercial banks that I'm aware of over the last 2 weeks have raised their interest rate by 1 point, some more than 1 percentage point. That's a huge swing in terms of your net cash flow. We don't need interest rates to go up 3, 4, 5 points to have an impact on the income. For every 1 point, if you want the same rate of return you would have had on that investment, you have to reduce the price by 15 or 20%. So let me carry that out a little further. If in January we were analyzing a property and in January the interest rate was 3.5%, and we said, okay, that building offered a certain cap rate, let's say 4% cap rate, and based upon a 3.5% interest rate that I'm borrowing at, the rate of return was X. In order to get X, now in a new market where the interest rate has gone up 1%, in order to still get the same rate of return, you would have to lower the purchase price by 15 to 20%. So this is a big deal that some of the banks have pivoted in this way, some of the major commercial banks. Now, there are some banks still, though, that are in the high 3%. And we're actually going to be having a web conference call with Gil Figueroa, who you also saw at our educational webinar, to bring us up to speed. What are the new requirements? Because there's actually new requirements for commercial loans. Some banks have them because the banks are well aware that your tenants are not paying rent either, so they have to protect themselves. What are the interest rates? What can the bond market, stock market, treasuries tell us about the trajectory of currently from where we are to where we may be headed, say, over the course of the next 3 months? We'll be bringing that information to you as well. Now, I want to share with you that we're going to be opening up a video library on our main webpage, theapartmentdealer.com. And once we have it ready to go, we'll be sending you an email. But we're going to list there all the educational videos and the various videos we've done over time, interviews, client testimonials. They're all in one spot. Many of you have asked for this, so we're going to be making those videos available. We'll let you know when that's ready to go. The other thing that we're going to have listed here on this current page that you're looking at is a couple things. Number one, we're going to create a handout that you can give your tenants so that they have resources. If they're without income, and that's why they're not paying you rent, well, let's find them some resources that maybe can help their situation, that will increase the likelihood that you get the rent, and you look like the good landlord because you brought them this information that maybe isn't common knowledge for them. There's going to be a link here for tenant resources. Make sure you check that out. Another one here we're going to have is, if you haven't already asked yourself, if you get a vacant unit, do you want to be the one that's cleaning the unit given the issues with this virus? So we actually located a few commercial cleaning companies that are still active, that are taking precautions to meet the regulations needed for sanitation. And we're going to list those here for you as well. And lastly, we'll have the link for the letter that I gave my own personal tenants that offered the 20% reduction in rent. Maybe you'll find that useful in the month of May to increase the likelihood that you get 80% and not 0%. What else can we do? The last few thoughts I would share with you is it's a good time to get organized. Maybe your tenant files are not the greatest. You got some stuff here, some stuff here. You got utility bills in the shoebox. My accounting wasn't that great, so it gives us an opportunity to get organized so that we can hit the ground running more efficiently once this is all over. Your entity. Maybe it's a good time to have a conversation with your family, your heirs, whoever's involved. Do we currently hold the properties in the right entity? If your properties are currently held in your family trust, there is a lot of exposure and liability in doing so. Steven Spear has mentioned this in multiple educational videos that we've provided for you. Again, he'll be with us in a week or so, and we can address that. Same question all the time at our events. What's better, to hold a property in your family trust, an LLC? Do you have both? Do you just have more insurance? Is that enough protection? How do you not create a nightmare for your heirs when they take over the property? So maybe it's a good time to address these things. If you don't have a trust, at least to create a living trust while we have this downtime. Also, look into the government loans, the government programs that are available. There's 2 different loan programs that the government has opened up, and depending on how you hold title, depending on the entities, businesses you own, there is money there to assist you at this time. I would suggest you look into that and have a discussion with your accountant. Which one would serve your needs? Which one would you qualify for? Another suggestion would be to call your lenders. Now, hopefully you're able to make your mortgage payments, but I wouldn't wait until you have a need, because they're getting a glutton of phone calls. Now may be the time for you to call the lenders that hold the notes for your various properties to ask them, hey, can we take 30, 60, 90 days, 2 to 3 months of mortgage payments, put them on the back end of my loan, and that would assist me while I'm receiving, say, just a fraction of what I used to in rental income. I would say make that call now as opposed to later when things get really dire and they're getting slammed with more phone calls from landlords. Addressing your loan. Are you currently in an adjustable loan? As I mentioned, interest rates have headed up. Gil will be sharing with us, is that going to be basically standard practice? The low 3% are long and gone. So what do we need to do to address our current mortgages? And second, every downturn provides opportunity. Do you have as much cash as you would like to so that you can capitalize when opportunity presents itself? Maybe it's time to entertain the idea of doing a cash out refinance, pull some equity out, have it available at a lower rate today than maybe it's going to be available tomorrow, so that you're ready, because cash will be king. When properties come up for sale, specifically multifamily properties, it becomes very competitive. You need to have the money ready to go. If you write an offer, and on the offer, essentially you're saying, I promise to do a refinance of my property, and you cannot show the cash ready to go, your offer starts falling down the totem pole of what's most desirable to the seller. Obviously, to the seller, somebody who already has their money in tow, ready to go, becomes the most viable buyer. That's something to consider. And then lastly, I would ask you this question. What is it that you would hope to accomplish from your rental properties? And maybe don't approach that from where you mentally, emotionally are today, because emotions are high. I would say if you could ask yourself in January, right, this past January, if you would have asked yourself, what am I trying to accomplish by owning multifamily properties, by taking my capital and purchasing investment real estate, what is it that I'm looking to accomplish? And you have to analyze from there. You need a game plan. To simply approach this as, well, I know more money's coming in than is going out, it's not the best approach. I'm not saying because of what I've been able to do with my own portfolio. I'm telling you because I've worked with some of the largest multifamily owners in Southern California. They own thousands and thousands of units. And I'm not saying you should aspire to own that much, but my point is, how do they approach their investments? They're not waiting to see how do things work out. They do not allow themselves to become a victim of circumstance. They have a game plan, and as best possible with the information at hand, they execute on that game plan. So, some questions to ask yourself. As I look to retire, if you're not yet retired yet, what amount of cash flow would I need from my properties in order to create the standard of living that I'm looking for, right? It's that whole idea that I talk about. You have 2 options. You can either expand your cash flow now to meet your goals and dreams of the future, or you can shrink your dreams and goals to fit your cash flow because you haven't pivoted, you haven't made the right transitions within your portfolio to expand it. So where are you currently? And can you honestly get from where you are now to where you want to be doing nothing? And if something needs to be done, start to strategize what changes need to be done. Net worth. Where would you like your net worth to be at the end of this whole thing? Again, I would have to assume you're in this business for cash flow. You're in this business for tax savings. You're in this business because it allows more security, say, than other type of investments. You're not in the business to deal with eviction moratoriums and problem tenants and calls in the middle of the night. We deal with those things because of the positives that are associated with investment real estate. So what's our strategy on our own behalf and for the behalf of our heirs? And when I address this, I talk about the 3 pillars of a financial legacy. So in quick review, the first pillar is maximization. What are we doing to maximize, to get the most juice we can from the lemon? What are we doing to maximize our properties currently? Okay, so do we need to do certain capital improvements, certain things we need to address at the property to increase its value so that then we have more equity to utilize in pillar 2, which is growth. And in growth, it gets really fun. This is where you go from a 5 to a 10 unit. Your income goes up by 30%. Maybe you go from 10 to 15. Or you go from 1 building to 2. I have one client that just sold 2 small properties and we're in an exchange to buy 1 larger property. You can do this in various different ways. The point being is, once you maximize what you currently own and now you put yourself in a position to grow, you're growing based upon your dreams, your goals, your financial goals, if you will, of pillar 3, which is preparation for tomorrow. That you've prepared for the standard of living that you would like to enjoy in the future and the standard of living that you would like to enjoy or that you would like your heirs to enjoy sometime down the road. If you'd like, I realize it's not convenient to have a one-to-one meeting, but I'd be more than happy to schedule a Zoom call. They talk about a call via the web. You can use this Skype, Google Hangouts, or a simple phone call. If you have questions, hey, what are some of the investors that are the savviest doing right at this moment? Because I pick their brain all the time. I'm fortunate enough, they're my personal clients. Many of them are personal friends now. I'd be happy to share some of this information with you. Just the mindset of those that really win at this business. If you'd like to address your current properties, hey Chris, how do I maximize, in a rent-controlled world, how do you maximize a property? What are the opportunities to do so? If you'd like to grow, how can I do that now? How can you do that when it's not safe to step outside? Who knows where the rent's going to be May and June? What are the strategies, the tactics for doing so? Because I'm in the middle of growth myself. My wife and I are in the middle of renovating. We just finished renovating 1 building. We're renovating right in the middle of renovating another building. And so I have some practical experiences as a landlord, and I've walked many clients through that process as well. And then in terms of preparing for tomorrow, you're just curious, hey, what is the income look like for the kids, the grandkids? Anything that I can help you address, I'd be more than happy to take that time with you. We could have a 15, 20-minute web call if you prefer. I'm a little old-fashioned, so I prefer something face-to-face. A simple phone call I can offer as well. I hope this is helpful. I hope all the resources that we have listed on this page, please click through each link, take a look, review the videos. As always, there's no sales pitch here. There's no strings attached. This is the information that I need to, as a landlord, to succeed in the times that we're currently facing. I hope this is all helpful. Chris German from The Apartment Dealer, wishing you more than ever positive cash flow, tenants who behave, and much protection from Uncle Sam, the overreach of Gavin Newsom, his cronies, just protection in general. Be safe. Talk to you soon.